my name's Melissa. I am a nurse. I've been a nurse for 19 years. Today we're going to talk about how to pay off student loans as quickly as possible. Um, I had $90,000 in consumer debt. I managed to pay that off in 5 years, plus save up enough money to go for a master's degree. That said, that's not happening right now, but that's a whole other story for another day. If you really want to know, we can have a whole talk about that. Put it in the comments and let me know. Um, I Before you say why am I paying off the student loans, I can go into loan forgiveness programs. You can, and it's not something that I don't. You can look into. You can always put the money aside that you're using to pay off the debt faster and pay it off of that period if you're not forgiven. But unfortunately, a lot of these student loan forgiveness programs, even the public student loan forgiveness program, the rates of the actual acceptance and paying off are unfortunately quite low statistically. That said, obviously, you do you. You also need to look into during that time you're making 10 years of payments, is the interest worth what you'd save if you paid it off quickly? For example, I paid mine off in, I think it was either 3 or 4 months. The amount of money I would have paid in 10 years of interest, it wasn't worth it, but I also made sure I didn't take out a lot of loans. So it wasn't really a big thing for me to pay it off quickly. That actually gets into my tip number one. Do not loan more than 1 year of your salary. That is the Money Guys recommendation. That's who I follow for my budgeting and money advice. Personally, I think the total amount I took out completely was 15,000. But that said, and this will get into my second tip. The moment I had off from school, I was working overtime and I was paying it off as soon as possible. I also never took anything more than the government subsidized loans and made sure I could pay the rest, or used my college money from my work to pay off anything that wasn't going to be subsidized, because I did not want any interest racking up on me while I was in school. So I never had to pay interest because I paid mine off before they were due. I was very fortunate in that, and I realize it's not the reality for everyone, but do what you have to do, but definitely consider that when you are thinking about it, because unfortunately it comes to bite you in the butt sometimes. The other thing is, if you haven't gone to school yet, consider where you're going to school and what kind of program you have. I mean, I know people who went to fancy private colleges who have, I think the highest I heard was 90,000. But I personally went to community college and I went for the cheapest RN to BSN program I could find. The hospital I currently am employed with has a program where I think it's it's some low amount of hours a week as a tech. I want to say 16, something like that. They'll pay for your school and then you work there for 2 years afterwards. That said, don't just take the hospital's free money. Look at where what the pay is in your area. Maybe it's better to take out money for a community college or some cheap college if there's one in your area. And you want to do that versus working for a hospital if their pay is significantly lower than other hospitals if you weren't bound to them. That said, that's a little more research, and I can't tell you because every area, every program, and the requirements are a little more nuanced. Once you do graduate, and even while you're in school, everyone, as a grown up, you need a budget. While you are in debt or while you're creating debt, you need to live in reality. While you are in debt, you don't go out to eat. You don't go on vacation. You're not buying things you don't need. I have some videos on money saving tips. There's tons of them out there. Let me know what you want to know about, and we can create more videos on that, and I can even create a video on how to budget. Personally, I create my budget in every dollar every month, but use the program. or heck, even use a freaking piece of paper or a spreadsheet. Whatever you're going to do, as long as you're consistent with actually budgeting, it's fine. I personally never paid for a budgeting program. I use the EveryDollar free version. Back in the day before that, I used Mint when it existed. It don't matter. They basically all work the same principle. The other thing is, while you're in school, I personally, every time I had a vacation from school, and when I finished, you're working overtime to pay off that debt. That said, when I first started nursing, there was not the rampant understaffing. So do that with caution. Take care of yourself first. If you notice you're feeling signs of burnout, work your 36 hours and be done. Take care of yourself first, but that was my number one way of paying off my debt quickly, was working overtime. 5 is, and I don't know, I've been a nurse for far too long. There wasn't as many fancy and designer brands available, but only buy what you need. And you do not need you do not need figs. You don't need, I don't even know what brands are anymore. I personally wear Moxie brand scrubs. I usually get them when they're on sale. I think at the most I've spent like $35 for a set. I also have some of the Fabletics when they have the, I think it's like $5 a top options. That said, I personally have 2 weeks worth because back in the day, I used to only wash them when I had a full load, and I just wash all my scrubs together. Now, personally, oh yeah, and also make sure you consider in how much overtime you're doing so you have enough to get through. Now, personally, I could probably have like 4 or 5 sets and be fine. I think I have 8 from back when I used to work more hours and when I used to do the 2 weeks at a time, but now I just wash them with reusable washcloths and every other thing that I'm washing on a heavy-duty cycle. I mean, don't buy Total Crud, but quite honestly, I found my Walmart scrubs held up just as well. I just like the Moxie better because they're a little more stretchy, but as long as you're buying decent quality, you don't need to spend $100. I bought like I said, Walmart worked just fine and held up just fine. Just make sure they're comfortable and you're good to go. I also personally, if you have the option, where I live, the color of choice for nurses is navy blue. Some hospitals have some other variations, but I try to stick with the color. And even back before I worked at a hospital, made me wear colors. I stick with colors that you can buy RIT dye for, so that when they get bleached and nasty, I can re-dye them and get more life out of them. It's probably saved me an extra 6 months to a year on a sets of scrubs by not having to throw them out because they're so bleached and they're not professional looking. We talked about that. And this one I am guilty as charged. Don't be buying stuff because the hospital doesn't supply it. Don't feel bad that if other nurses do that. That said, if you tithe or do charity, use that as part of your charitable contributions, even if it's not technically a charity. I've done it and I still do it at times, but I also don't have consumer debt, so I can afford to use part of my budget for that if I want to, but you need to take care of yourself first. That said, if it makes you feel good and that's part of your thing, do it. Like I personally, like back in the day, I worked at hospitals where the toothbrushes we gave the patients were like Brillo pads with the little bristles coming out and looking like and being like freaking dental floss between your teeth. The patient was going to be there a long time. Sometimes I bought them a nicer one. I've also bought real brushes and stuff like that for patients when I've worked at hospitals and only had the combs. But don't go bankrupting yourself for stuff the hospital doesn't supply. Another way that you can save money even if you're not a nurse, if you are listening to this and you're not a nurse, is maxing out your FSA. Not necessarily maxing out the dollar amount you're allowed to spend, but you want to make sure you're buying everything you can on it. It's going to lower your taxable income. It's going to see, it's depending on your tax bracket, it's about 30% savings on your items if you can claim them on your FSA. There is more stuff than you'd ever imagine eligible for it. You can look at Amazon as a tab, I believe you can hit to make it for FSA eligible only items only. There is an online website, fsastore.com. I found, unfortunately, most of the time they're more pricey than Walmart or other places, but point being, look, check, see how much you really think you realistically are going to spend in a year. For example, anything SPF wise, like SPF lip balm, sunscreen. I personally use for my face. My daughter uses, but like acne body washes, anything with the salicylic acid is covered under that. Your retinols, depending on what you're using, like I use tretinoin for my face. It helps with anti-aging, it helps with acne, but it is FSA eligible. Scales to weigh yourself. It's more than just your prescriptions and doctor's visits. There's a lot more than you'd ever realize. Even, I believe, like a lot of the bandages, like regular Band-Aids can be on there. But check, don't just quote me on what I'm saying, but look, think about it. Even if it's only a couple thousand a year, it's still a couple, if you only put a couple thousand in, it's still a couple $100 in savings you're getting each year versus just letting it hit your regular paycheck and buying these items after taxes. Personally, like I think I said before, I do follow the Money Guys debt reduction and money plannings. Time is your best friend. If you're smarter than me, you started investing in your 401k way earlier than I did, or if you're working for a nonprofit 403b, there's similar, basically 403b is a nonprofit, 401k is for a for-profit retirement plan. But I personally invested to my match when I worked at hospitals that were that way when I was paying off debt. Where I work now, I'm fortunate they cover you regardless, but you want to be getting that match while you're paying off debt, and ideally paying off debt as quickly as possible so you can max out, not necessarily max out the dollar amount, but getting the maximum in there so you can save, so you're not working somewhere forever. Ideally, I want to see you pay off debt so you can work somewhere you want to and you're not trapped in a job that you hate just because you need to make a certain salary to pay your bills. You deserve a better life than that. We all do. The other thing is, which, I don't know, I've been a nurse for far too long, but the amount of accessories and fashionable crud that we all buy that's not needed. Don't get yourself caught into the popularity of the floor and what everyone else is doing. You do not need a Stanley cup. Any freaking water bottle will do. I personally use, I think at this point I have Coleman, but I had Contigos in the past when they were on sale. But I personally like a water bottle with an auto closure so that I don't accidentally spill it. But you just need the basics. You don't need anything fancy. If you're not allowed to, or there's an area not near you, you can even just use the freaking styrofoam cups from the kitchen and get rid of them. You also want to consider your other things like your stethoscopes, your badge, little clippy thingies, whatever they're called, and other accessories. For example, when I went to school, they made you have a Littmann stethoscope. Since then, it's broken. I have a basic ADC stethoscope. I bought the color that was on sale on Amazon. My stethoscope cost me $75 for a cardiology one versus I think Littmann's are like $120, $150. I don't know. They all work the same. You don't need the fancy color. You just need it to be quality and to work. Also, like I said, you don't need the badge clippies. If you want to make it part of your fun money, because I do believe in having some fun money while you're paying off debt, but you don't need one for every season. You also I'm trying to think of the other accessories that people have that are stupid. Lububu's hanging off your damn stethoscope. You don't need those. You need the basics to get you through work and to be comfortable. And, you know, personally, when I buy my nursing shoes, I do buy good quality so that because your feet are going to keep you working forever, but I buy whatever color's on sale. I'm not buying whatever's the fancy trendy shoe of the time. I personally wear the brand called Stand. They're great, they're fabulous, they are pricey, but I buy them when they're on sale. I will buy whatever colors are the cheapest. And that's what I wear, and that's that, and I don't get into paying crazy money to have the fanciest, manciest thing. If you can think of other tips, please add them below. If you found this of any value, please like and share it. Thanks. Stay safe. Bye.